Welcome to the Experience Darden podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. So on this episode of the podcast, I'd like to feature a conversation I recently recorded with two of the leaders of our consulting club, Devon Pagoaga and Michelle Ingold. I sat down with Devon and Michelle to talk a little bit more about the consulting club, the kind of programming and support the club provides, as well as to hear a little bit more about their experience here at Darden. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Devon Pagoaga and Michelle Ingold. Devon, Michelle, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
All right. So tell us just a little bit more about who you are and what you did before you came to Darden. So let's start with you, Devon.
Hey, everyone. I'm Devon, second-year student. I'm actually the president of the consulting club here at Darden. Before coming to school, I worked in Deloitte in Atlanta in the audit practice. I really loved my experience there, loved being able to work on a team on challenging projects, but auditing is a lot of looking in the past, and I really wanted something that was more forward-looking, something that I could do to add value and be more strategic in nature. So I decided to pursue my MBA and came to Darden.
How about you, Michelle?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Ingold. Prior to Darden, I did Teach for America for 2 years. So as a high school math teacher, I taught pre-calculus and calculus, which was quite interesting and a lot of fun. I really enjoyed my time in the classroom, but I majored in finance, so I wanted to go back into business after Teach for America. So I joined a financial services consulting firm. So much like Devon, all of my work was backwards looking, a lot of audit, a lot of government compliance having to do with the banking sector. So similar, as she mentioned, I wanted to come back to Darden and get my MBA to pursue strategy consulting as well.
So we're going to talk more about the consulting club, but want to first learn just a little bit more about you and your experience here. So did you always know that you wanted to get an MBA? How did you come to the decision to pursue this particular degree?
I actually did not always know. I think I made the decision in July and applied in September by talking to only a few people, but really looked at the opportunities that were available to me, and just nothing really seemed to strike that chord that made me really excited until one of my managers at work actually told me, hey, I really think you would like going to business school. I started looking it up, and I was just so exciting, all the opportunities that you had. I kind of a nerd at heart, so I loved school, so a perpetual student. So that's how I decided to go. And then to pursue Darden, it was the first school I visited, and I just absolutely loved it. I said, this is the only school I'm going to apply to. I sat in on a class with the case method, talked about learning teams, met a bunch of students first years and second years, just really could feel the collaborative environment and culture that this school had. I obviously did apply to other schools because I had to be a little bit more rational about that, but was super excited about my opportunity to come here. Had high expectations, and I would say the experience thus far has far exceeded those already really high expectations.
How about you, Michelle?
Yeah, so I've always thought about going to business school. I actually thought about it a lot in undergrad. When as I mentioned, I majored in finance and econ, so I kind of knew I wanted to be in this business sphere. I just wasn't quite sure of like the timing of when I should apply. Should I apply post Teach for America? Should I apply after I get some more business experience? So it was always kind of in the back of my head, and it was just always about timing. So I ended up applying to Darden post, as I mentioned, my financial services consulting experience to kind of get that business knowledge, making sure I actually really did want to go get it back, come back to get an MBA, and make sure it was the right timing, and it would kind of line up what I wanted to do post MBA. And all of those pieces kind of fell into place, which was really great. And to echo everything that Devon said about Darden, that's 100% how I chose it as well. It was all about gut feeling. I walked onto campus, I interviewed. It was an amazing experience. And it was my first interview out of the many that I had. And so I was like, this is it. If I get in, I'm going. And so I think that really speaks to the community and culture here at Darden.
And now you're on a podcast here.
Yes.
So I'm curious what you did in the summer before you started your first year here. How did you spend that time?
So I worked probably a little later than most people. I worked through July and immediately left the Atlanta office of Deloitte, took the public transportation to the airport, and went to Peru for 8 days, which I highly recommend traveling. Then I had a couple weeks to settle in at home. As far as preparing for school, just read the books that we were assigned, did a lot more research, did Charlottesville research, but really took that time to relax and also contemplate what it was that I wanted to do post-Darden.
How about you?
Yeah, I was very similar. I stopped working in the beginning of June because I talked to a lot of second years who were at Darden that year and asked, like, what should I do over the summer? Should I be, do I need to jump right into recruiting? Do I need to work on, like, building up my business acumen to make sure I'm ready for school? And a lot of the pieces of advice I received was take the summer to, like, really concentrate on you, get your energy levels up, because come start of school, you're really going to be pushed to your limits. So I took the time to kind of hang out with my family, friends, did a little bit of traveling, and kind of got prepared to make the move from Dallas, where I was prior to Darden, to Charlottesville.
So what was that first year like? I've had these conversations a few times now, and everybody talks about the learning curve. So what was it like to be at Darden as a brand new student?
A blur. So it's really exciting times, and I feel like you can be in the grind of things. So you have class from 8 until 1:30, then typically company briefings, and then also recruiting calls, and you have to prepare your cases for the next day. You have 3 cases every day. Meet with learning team, and by the time you're home, you started all over again. At the same time, while you are incredibly busy, you are with a great community of people that you're sharing these experiences with. So while, yes, you're in class, it's really entertaining class. Every case goes by so fast. So I think just having that mentality of like, okay, yes, this is kind of a grind, but seeing the end goal and trusting the process, it was definitely the Darden time is a weird time warp, but it was great.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. It's a very exciting and kind of invigorating time because you have so many responsibilities, so many things to do. But at the end of your first year, it is so rewarding to kind of look back and see everything that you accomplished, because when you're stuck in the day to day, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, I have to do 100 million things. But when you kind of look back, it's like, oh, look how much I've actually learned. And I think that's a true testament to the case method, to the professors here at Darden, to how we're able to come together in learning teams and actually try and like learn something here at business school. And so I would say first year was, while maybe one of my hardest experiences ever, it was definitely the most rewarding thing and something that I'll continue to look back on.
Did you feel the impact of that training when you got to your summer jobs?
Yeah, so I actually felt it in a few ways. So one was just the ability to speak up. 2 was the ability to solve problems and not just to bring answers, not just problems. And then 3 was just the technical aspect of what we learned. And so speaking up in classroom, you're sitting there with 64 students. It's a little overwhelming. But, you just have to get up there and raise your hand, and you could be wrong, you could be right. But as long as you have a solid argument and can defend yourself, it's okay. And so I felt like I really brought that to my client team this summer. From the bringing solutions. So basically every class at Darden starts with, what are you going to do? Not like, what's going on? What's the problem? It's like, what are you going to do? And like, then let's backtrack. And so I found myself throughout the summer really taking initiatives of saying, these are the 4 possible solutions. This is the one I think, and this is why, and these are the risks. So I feel like that's a structure that I normally didn't have before. And then finally, just technical, our decision analysis class really came in handy in Excel and using dummy variables. So that could have not come in handy depending on the study that I was on, but I was really grateful for it.
Yeah, I would echo all of those things. The only thing I would add would just be to kind of enhance your first reasoning is Darden does a great job of, because we learn in the case method, the communication and interpersonal skills you build while in the classroom is really great, and it helps you while on a team. So in consulting, you work on a team of maybe 4 to 6 average maybe, and at Darden, it's like you're working on a team with 60. So it's a little bit different in the numbers, but you're supposed to work together as a team in the classroom in order to reach the correct answer, in order to develop that step-by-step on how you're going to figure out the answer. And so all of those communication, interpersonal skills, learning how to deal with those team dynamics is something I definitely used all summer long as well.
So how's second year going? I mean, you're over halfway done at this point.
Yeah, we're a little sad. It seems like every day it's just ticking off closer and closer to May. But it's great. It's a different type, still busy, but a different type. I think that Darden really encourages student leaders. So we've all been really invested in helping first years going through the recruiting process, or invested in building out your hobbies or whatever it is. You're not just going to class and then going home. There's always something going on. So it's just a little bit less stressful because you're self-selecting into it, and you can see the positive impact that the second years in the class above us have had on us, and hoping to pay it forward.
Yeah, what I've really enjoyed about the second year, too, is you get to, not that I didn't like the core was great and it's kind of sets expectations for the entire class, but you really get to choose and pick what classes you want to really hone in on and what skills you want to develop. So whether that's taking on a leadership position and really enhancing your communication and interpersonal leadership skills through maybe a club board, or taking that finance class that you might not ever have a chance to take again. You really get to choose your own path in your second year and figure out what you really want to get out of your last year in the NBA experience and what's going to help you maybe in the long term or in your career or developing the relationships with your classmates. So I think that's what I've really enjoyed most about the second year was making sure that I'm getting everything possible out of this experience right now, because once you graduate, it's kind of back to the real world and working. And so making sure I eat up all of the Darden energy.
So you're both involved in a leadership position with the Consulting Club. How did you choose to get involved with the Consulting Club?
Yeah. So I got involved because I relied a lot upon the Consulting Club last year. And so I really wanted to kind of give back to the community. The Consulting Club really helps the first years throughout the entire recruiting process to know what to prioritize when, what to do when, et cetera. And I really appreciated everything the club board did last year. And so I just wanted to give back to the first years to making sure their experience was exactly how my experience was the prior year.
Totally agree with everything that Michelle said. One extra thing is that I felt like the Consulting Club last year had a great foundation. They did a really good job. It's very structured, but I had the vision that we wanted to work closer with the CDC. And so that was one thing I felt like maybe last year was a little bit more disconnected. And the CDC actually hired last January a director for consulting recruiting, and she has been amazing. And so it's been really great to use her as a resource to bounce ideas off of her, to send students to her who have questions that I can't answer. And so I feel like we've gone leaps and bounds ahead of where we were because of this awesome resource. And so that's something that I really wanted to do. And then it was great that we had this new position. And that's just been wonderful this year.
Yeah, Christy Gunville
Yeah.
already won the Friend of the Student Award.
Yeah.
So it's
Much deserved.
Made quite an impact. So what kind of support does the Consulting Club provide?
So we have a few main events that we have throughout the year. So we do a Networking 101 kickoff. So what is consulting? What are the norms around recruiting? We do a mock networking night. So first years can practice telling their story. So it's really awkward when you're talking to someone you never met in 30 seconds to try and say, this is who I am, this is why I'm here, this is why I want to do consulting. So did that. We have Resumanias and Cover Letter Manias, where second years will review resumes, review cover letters to make sure that it is geared towards consulting. Darden does have great resources as well, but it's just a supplemental resource. The biggest event that we have, Michelle was actually in charge of planning, so we have a consulting conference. I'll let Michelle talk more about that. And then the other resources that we have is really connecting, providing a way that first years can be connected with second years, whether that's through happy hours or through interview and case prep, through these Resumanias and Cover Letter Manias, to really provide that channel that someone might not have those organic relationships right off the bat. So the club really provides that support and network. But the consulting conference this year was a huge success, much thanks to Michelle and Tanvi, who is the other VP of events, and she can probably shed some light on what that all entailed.
Yeah, so the Consulting Club Conference is a 2-day programming event for the club members, specifically the first years. And so it's where we bring on 10 to 15 companies onto campus, and kind of we do a 2-day programming and also networking kind of experience. So, we talk a lot about what is consulting, why do we want to be in consulting. We talk a lot about the interview prep. We talked a lot about networking and how it's so important throughout the process. And so it was a really, we do it every year, and it's always high up on people's, kind of they really enjoy it. And so, yeah.
We had 11 firms, I believe, this year.
11 firms this year,
and 170-ish students, first-year students who attended.
Yeah.
And Michelle and Tommy did a great job to make sure that they were really a lot of touch points with the firms and the students, because that is a big part of the consulting recruiting process, is building your network and just making those connections. And so it was a really great way for all the firms to be there, all the students to have various opportunities to talk to people.
For some of our students, that I think that can feel a little intimidating, right? Making those connections, cultivating and building and cultivating those relationships, telling your story. What advice or tips? I mean, you're on the other side of it now. You're heading towards graduation. What advice or tips might you have?
I think the most important thing is to be yourself. So that goes a few ways. So one, when you're talking to someone, the recruiters who come on grounds are usually 2 or 3 years out. They were at Darden. They were in your shoes not that long ago. They're real people. So just keeping that in mind. And like sometimes you have like this shiny halo on them and think that you can't really be yourself, but to be yourself from that way. And then to also realize that the process is different for everyone. Some people have very targeted industries or functions in mind. Some people are just learning. It's just a broad spectrum, and you can't compare yourself to every single person because otherwise you'll feel like you're always drowning. So those are my big takeaways.
Yeah, I would really echo the be yourself part. Like everybody has especially here at Darden, everybody has a very unique, very interesting story. And so it's just all about sharing your story and why you're excited to recruit for your consulting, why are you excited about Darden, why are you excited about Firm X? And so just conveying that excitement and being open and honest and sharing your unique story and why you think that would fit into XYZ firm, I think is just always a great thing to do.
Hear a lot about juggling school and the job search process, how challenging that is. How do you help students think about that? Does the Consulting Club play a role in helping people navigate those challenges?
So I think one invaluable resource is your learning team. And so being open and honest with your commitments with your learning team and helping to make sure that they are taking up something when you can't do it and vice versa. So I think that is just a huge help that Darden provides. The second thing, so as a consulting club, we have a lot of events and we are really strategic about the timing of it. So a lot of students come on grounds in August and are like, I need to start doing case prep. I need to start preparing for the interviews. And we try and monitor the process to make sure that like they're not biting off more than they can chew. And so really saying, okay, these 2 weeks is resumes, these 3 weeks are networking calls, and trusting the process from that perspective, I think has been really helpful. And then just being strategic of like knowing when first years have big events, we're not going to schedule a club meeting. We don't have that many meetings because there's 300 people in the consulting club. So we just send an email every Sunday night at 6 that has all of the information that they need to know for the week.
Yeah, just echoing, we try and create it so that way it's bite-sized chunks. Mm-hmm. You have one focus, and then you can check off that box on the focus, and then you can kind of move to a next focus. So it's just all about being very deliberate in what we want the first years to be focusing on and when. That was the only thing I'd echo.
Yeah. What have you enjoyed about your roles with the Consulting Club? It sounds like y'all have had a lot of impact this year. So.
Yeah, what I've really enjoyed, so I'm VP of events for the Consulting Club, and what I've really enjoyed is one, making all the connections with the first years. They're very excited to kind of jump in and get inside this project. So making those connections, developing relationships with them, watching them grow throughout the process has been amazing. I remember the first few cases I started giving first years were, a little bit rocky, as they all are every year. I'm sure we were the same last year. And just seeing that growth through the end of the case period is just like so rewarding that we as Darden are growing in this way. And then the second, what I've really enjoyed is I was kind of the company-facing side of the events. So I did all the communications and interfacing with the firms who come to campus. And so developing relationships with those recruiters and those people, all the consultants who come back to Darden to recruit for their firms, making sure that those relationships stay intact, that they're continuing to come to Darden was really exciting for me too.
I totally agree with working with the first years. It's been really cool to just see their journey, and people are still interviewing, and it seems like they've had wild successes. So I'm really excited to see where everyone decides to work this summer and how that all plays out. Another thing that I've just really enjoyed is working with the awesome board that we have. I don't even know what my life would be like without them, but without people like Michelle and our other VPs that we have a 10-person board, and which is probably one of the bigger ones at Darden, but it's also one of the bigger clubs. And so just working with them and being able to rely on them and trust them has just been absolutely fantastic. And then I think the last thing is knowing that like what we're doing is making hopefully a lasting impact. So it's hard at Darden being a leader sometimes because there's no institutional knowledge. Everyone keeps graduating, right? And so I do feel like some of the things that we've done, improvements that we've made, will have an institutional impact for years to come.
That's awesome. So graduation is just a few months away. Bittersweet, I'm sure. What's on your bucket list? What do you hope to accomplish between now and in May?
So from a personal aspect, I'm really passionate about traveling. And so I had actually, when I was an admitted student, went to a dinner in Atlanta with some Darden alums. And this one woman had said that she had made a goal to go to 30 countries before she turned 30. I was like, that's a great goal. And I think I was at 20. After I'm doing a DWC, so a Darden Worldwide course, to Israel this spring break. And so I will be actually at 28 countries. So a lot of opportunities to travel. Highly recommend taking advantage of all of the opportunities that Darden allows. So trying to, maybe not at May, but over the summer before I start working, getting to those 30 countries would be really awesome. And then from just a day-to-day, I feel like just really making sure that connecting with people versus just the small number of people that are my close friends, easy to talk to, but really broadening my bubble and making sure to take advantage of every opportunity possible to connect with my classmates.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm really excited for Q4 when the weather turns nice, spending all those times with my classmates before we kind of all break to different cities, enjoying the weather out of the local wineries or the breweries or taking a hike, really getting that time to just spend it with my classmates is what I'm really looking forward to prior to graduation.
So what's your advice for prospective students? Not so long ago, you were out there thinking about pursuing an MBA or applying to Darden. What advice would you share?
I think one of the biggest things that I learned throughout this whole process is figuring out what your non-negotiables are and whether or not that's choosing to go to business school, choosing what program, what industry. Like, I wasn't sure that I wanted to do consulting, what firm you want to work for, even just your day-to-day life. Like, what are your non-negotiables? And that will just help you kind of keep that like work-life balance, integration, whatever the buzzwords are. But really, I like doing some self-reflection and figuring out what that is. And it'll just make it so much better day-to-day, week-to-week, month to month.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's all about understanding your whys and being very intentional in your decisions. So you want to go to business school, okay, why? Or, you want to do a career in consulting, okay, why? And just making sure you understand those whys and being very intentional about the choices that you make to make sure that you're continuing to work towards something. Kind of going along with that too is, set a goal. Like, where do you want to be in 10 years? Where do you want to be in 15 years? Where do you want to be in 25? And then kind of working your way backwards to understand, like, okay, if I want to do this, what do I need to do to get there?
So, Devon, I'm curious about something you said. So you said that you did know that you absolutely wanted to do consulting. Michelle, is that similar to your story? Did you know absolutely that you wanted to do consulting?
No, I knew pretty absolutely that I wanted to do it, or I hoped that I could do it.
So talk a little bit more about that sort of evolution of being somewhat circumspect about it to being convinced.
So per my admissions essay, I was all in on consulting. It really did make the most logical sense from my previous career. But I got on grounds and I was like, oh gosh, there's traveling. It's a lot more work. I really liked my marketing class, which I never really enjoyed marketing in undergrad. Like, should I do marketing? But what I eventually did was I found my non-negotiable, and that was a lot of it was working on a team and constantly learning. And so I felt like a lot of the positions that were out there that I was interested in, it seemed like you're much more of an individual contributor than working on a team. And I knew that I needed that team. I need to be sitting around a table, being able to ask people different questions, being able to answer questions for other people. And so that was kind of the turning point. And then this was early on in the recruiting process still, but then the more people I talked about their work that they did. It was just all really exciting. Changes a lot, adding that value, being forward-looking and strategic. So ended up being really happy with my decision. And then my summer internship sealed the deal that I definitely want to do this.
Yeah, so where are y'all going after graduation?
So I'm going to Atlanta to work for McKinsey & Company, and that's where I interned this summer.
Yeah, and I'm going to PwC in Dallas to work in their delivering deals value, so doing a lot of M&A transactional work.
Awesome. So last question. For you, what defines Darden? Or how do you, if you were to say, this is what Darden is, how would you think about that question? What would you share with a prospective student?
I think Darden is all about community. Everything we do is together as a community, whether that's in the classroom, whether that's a learning team, whether that's a Darden Cup, whether that's the different social events we do throughout the year. It's all about community and creating this sense of camaraderie that everything we do together, and just building that kind of community of support is how I would view Darden.
Yeah, I think Michelle pretty much nailed it on the head. Would also just add collaboration. And so one thing through the recruiting process especially is that first years are working with first years to help prepare each other. So you're giving each other case interviews. You're giving each other like, hey, don't forget to sign up for this event, et cetera, et cetera. And there's only a limited number of spots. So in the grand scheme of things, you are competing against each other, but it's healthy collaborative competition. And I just think that speaks wonders for the school. So whether even in classrooms, like we're graded on participation, so one person could be speaking the entire class, but that never happens. And so it's like a collaborative effort within the community. That's just, you don't see that anywhere else.
Well, Devon, Michelle, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I always learn something, when folks come on here. So good luck. Enjoy the last few months.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was my conversation with Devon Pagoaga and Michelle Ingold, two of the leaders of our consulting club here at the Darden School of Business. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, we are all ears. We can be reached by email at darden@virginia.edu. And until next time, thanks for listening.